Welcome to the book summary of Man's Search for Meaning. This is not just a story about survival, it is a story about the human spirit, about how even in the darkest places meaning can become light. Imagine yourself standing in a world stripped of comfort, stripped of freedom, stripped of everything that once defined you, yet somehow in that emptiness you begin to understand what truly matters. This is where Viktor Frankl found his purpose. This is where meaning was born. He was a psychiatrist, a thinker, a dreamer, and a survivor. During the years of World War II, Viktor Frankl was taken to concentration camps, including Auschwitz. There he witnessed suffering beyond imagination. But he also witnessed something more powerful than pain. He saw that even when everything is taken away from a person, one thing remains: the freedom to choose one's attitude. That truth became his guiding light. You learn that between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies our power to choose, and in our choice lies our growth and our freedom. No one can take away the last of human freedoms, the ability to decide how to face what happens. In the camp, life had no comfort, no hope, only the next moment. But within those moments, Viktor discovered that those who survived were not necessarily the strongest they were. Those who found meaning became the difference between giving up and holding on. He saw men who endured hunger and humiliation, but still comforted others, shared their last piece of bread, or whispered words of courage, that is, where he realized that suffering itself is meaningless until we give it purpose. When you find a reason to endure, suffering becomes bearable. It becomes a bridge, not a prison. You start to see that life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning, and when meaning exists even. Suffering can be transformed into strength. It is not the situation that defines you. It is what you decide to do with it. Frankl believed that meaning can be found in three ways: through work, through love, and through courage in suffering. Through work, you create purpose by contributing something valuable. Through love, you find connection and reason beyond yourself. And through courage, you rise above pain by choosing dignity. He remembered the face of his wife while walking in the freezing dawn, half-starved, half alive, and realized that love transcends suffering, that love can exist even when the person you love is gone. He realized that love is the ultimate and highest goal to which a person can aspire. This is where you begin to understand that happiness is not something you pursue directly. It comes when you live with purpose. The more you chase pleasure, the more it runs. The more you live for meaning, the more peace follows naturally. He taught that the greatest human task is not to seek comfort, but to find meaning in every condition of life. Because even pain has meaning if it teaches compassion, even loss has meaning if it deepens gratitude, and even struggle has meaning if it reveals strength. Meaning is not something given to you, it is something you create moment by moment through your choices and your attitude. You may not control your circumstances, but you always control the meaning you give them. Viktor watched as some prisoners gave up their will to live, while others kept a quiet flame inside. Those who could find a reason survived longer. The body follows the mind. When hope dies, the body soon follows. But when hope lives, the soul keeps fighting. You learn that the way out of despair is not to ask what you expect from life, but what life expects from you. Life is asking you a question every day, and your answer is not in words but in actions. Every moment you have the chance to respond with courage, love, and responsibility. Responsibility becomes the essence of meaning. It means you accept the role of shaping your life. You no longer blame circumstances or people. You step forward and say, I am responsible for who I become. The book reminds you that you are not a product of what happens to you, but of how you choose to interpret it. Even in hardship, you can choose purpose over bitterness, growth over defeat. You begin to understand that inner freedom is the greatest freedom of all. You start to look at your own life differently. Every challenge becomes a question of meaning. Every pain becomes a test of your inner power. You no longer ask, why is this happening to me? But what can I learn? Who can I become because of this? In that shift, everything changes. The weight of life becomes lighter because you carry it with purpose. Frankl called his philosophy logotherapy, which means healing through meaning. Instead of asking, what is wrong with you, it asks, what gives your life meaning? What makes you wake up? What makes you endure? What makes you love again? He believed that meaning is not found by escaping suffering, but by facing it with dignity and courage. Pain can be transformed into strength. Loss into understanding struggle into purpose. He once wrote that those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. That line carries the heart of his message. If your why is strong enough, you can face anything. Purpose makes pain temporary, meaning makes survival possible. You begin to see that the search for meaning is the search for yourself. The more you understand your why, the more power you have over your life. You become resilient because you know what you are fighting for. As the story continues, you see how this philosophy applies not only to the camps, but to the modern world. Today we live with more comfort but often less purpose. We chase goals without direction and wonder why we still feel empty. Meaning is not found in possessions or status. It is found in contribution, in connection, in growth. You realize that suffering will always be part of life, but despair is optional. You can suffer with purpose or without it. One destroys you, the other transforms you. You understand that happiness cannot be pursued. It must ensue. It comes as a side effect of living with meaning, of serving something bigger than yourself. When you start to live this way, even your smallest actions gain value. A conversation, a smile, a piece of work, a moment of gratitude all become pieces of your purpose. You stop existing and start living consciously. Every time life knocks you down, you remember Viktor Frankl's words that human beings are self-determining. We decide what we become by how we respond to life's tests. And that becomes the foundation of strength, because when you realize that your reaction is your power, no one can truly control you. You are free within yourself. You find meaning, not in avoiding suffering, but in transcending it. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to show the best version of yourself. Frankl's life teaches that even in the darkest places, the human spirit can shine. Even when everything is lost, your inner world remains yours. He believed that love is the highest form of meaning, because love connects you beyond yourself. It gives you reason to keep going when everything else has gone. To love is to affirm life even in pain. He also believed that humor can be a weapon against despair, that when you can laugh at tragedy, you prove that your spirit is not broken. You rise above your circumstance and claim your humanity. You learn that life is never without meaning, not even in suffering, not even in dying. Every experience carries potential for meaning if you look for it. So you begin to see every struggle in your life differently. Instead of running, you ask, what lesson does this carry? What strength is it building? What truth is it showing me? That shift turns pain into wisdom, and wisdom into peace. Through his story, Viktor Frankl gave the world a mirror. In that mirror, we see ourselves stripped of excuses, reminded of the freedom we always hold. Life will challenge you, but within each challenge is a chance to define who you are. The question is not how much can you bear, but who will you become as you bear it. You begin to live each day with quiet strength. You no longer fear difficulty, because you understand that meaning grows where comfort ends. You find peace not by escaping life, but by embracing it. You stop asking for an easy path and start asking for a meaningful one. And that is where fulfillment begins. Because meaning is not something to discover one day. It is something to create every day through love, through work, through courage. You have learned that freedom is not doing whatever you want. Freedom is choosing how to respond. Responsibility gives direction, freedom gives choice, and meaning gives life. So when tomorrow comes and life feels heavy, remember Viktor Frankl's message: between what happens and how you react, there is a space, and in that space lies your power, your growth, your freedom. Choose courage over comfort, purpose over pain, and meaning over despair. Because even when you cannot control your situation, you can always control your attitude. And in that choice, you reclaim your life. As you continue this journey deeper into the message of the book, you realize this story is not only about Viktor Frankl. It is about every human being who has ever faced darkness and still looked for light. The lesson begins to unfold like a quiet sunrise after a long night. You start to see that meaning is not found when life is easy, but when it is tested in comfort, we forget our strength. But in struggle, we remember who we are. Viktor Frankl wrote that the meaning of life differs from man to man, from day to day, and from hour to hour. What matters is not the general meaning of life, but the specific meaning of a person's life at a given moment. That means your meaning changes. As you grow, what once gave you purpose might fade, but something new will always rise. You realize that meaning is not fixed. It evolves. It moves as you move. It grows as you grow. There are moments when life feels empty, when everything you built falls apart. In those moments, you may think your meaning is gone, but it is only changing form. The pain you feel is not the end, it is transformation. Frankl teaches that you must take responsibility for finding meaning. No one can hand it to you. You must seek it through your choices, through your values, through how you treat others. When you live with purpose, every ordinary day becomes sacred. He describes 3 main ways to discover meaning. The first is through creative work. When you create something, give something, or build something meaningful, you experience fulfillment. Because you have added value to the world. It could be a book, a song, a business, a kind act, anything that leaves a trace of your soul behind. The second path is through experiencing something or loving someone. Beauty, art, nature, relationships, these connect you to something larger than yourself. They remind you that life is not just about surviving, but about feeling deeply. When you love someone, truly you find a reflection of meaning in their eyes. You exist for something beyond you. The third path is through suffering. This is the most profound and difficult path. When you face unavoidable suffering, you still have the choice to face it with dignity. You cannot always avoid pain, but you can choose the attitude that gives it purpose. When you suffer bravely, you discover an inner strength that no one can take away. He saw prisoners who lost everything yet refused to lose their spirit. They still whispered prayers, they still dreamed, they still loved. That is the miracle of meaning, that no external power can destroy your inner world. This is where you understand that the mind is stronger than the body. The body can be imprisoned, but the mind can remain free. True freedom lives in your thoughts, in your choices, in your values. Frankl's philosophy gives you a new lens to see your life through. Every challenge becomes a question. What is this teaching me? Every hardship becomes a test of meaning. How can I respond with courage? Every day becomes a new opportunity to live with purpose. The book reminds you that suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds meaning. When you find purpose in pain, it transforms from a curse into a gift. You realize that life is like a question, and you are the answer each morning. Life asks, will you live with purpose today? Will you choose kindness even in pain? Will you keep going even when it hurts? Your response defines your existence. Frankl calls this responsibility the essence of being human. It means you are not defined by what happens to you, but by how you respond to it. Life does not owe you, meaning you must create it. Meaning does not depend on success or fame. It can exist in the smallest acts and the quietest gestures, the nurse caring for a patient, the teacher inspiring a child, the artist creating beauty in silence. Each one lives meaningfully because they serve something greater than themselves. You begin to see that wealth and status cannot fill the void of purposelessness. True richness comes from knowing why you live. When you have a why, you can handle any how. Frankl wrote that to live is to suffer, but to survive is to find meaning in the suffering. This does not mean you seek pain, but that you seek growth through it. Every wound can become wisdom if you let it. As you listen, you start to think about your own life, the disappointments, the losses, the dreams that never came true. You start to see them not as failures, but as invitations to discover deeper meaning. You realize that what hurts you most can also awaken you most. Pain opens the heart. It strips away what is shallow and reveals what is real. When you walk through darkness with courage, you discover light you never knew was inside you. Frankl reminds you that human beings are capable of incredible transformation. When life breaks you, it is offering you a chance to rebuild stronger. When life takes something, it may be giving you space for something greater. You begin to see that even when the path is unclear, your steps still matter. Every small act of courage, every moment of compassion builds meaning brick by brick. There's a quiet power in accepting what you cannot change. Acceptance is not weakness, it is strength, because it allows you to focus on what you can control, your attitude, your choices, your response. You stop asking for an easy life and start asking for a meaningful one, because an easy life may comfort you, but a meaningful life fulfills you. Frankl's story teaches that purpose is what gives suffering value, and that love is what gives purpose meaning. In the camp, love became his anchor. He would close his eyes and imagine his wife, her smile, her voice, and in that moment he was free. Love transcended walls, fences, and fear. He realized that even when everything is gone, love remains, and that love can make life worth living. When you live for something beyond yourself, you find strength you never knew you had. Meaning pulls you forward even when your body is tired. It whispers, "Keep going, there is still something ahead." You learn that meaning gives direction when everything feels lost. It becomes a compass in chaos, a reason to breathe when hope feels far. Frankl believes that despair comes when you forget your purpose. He saw that people who had nothing left to live for lost the will to survive, but those who held on to meaning kept going. Meaning gives life momentum. He taught that meaning is not found in pleasure or power, but in responsibility. When you take responsibility for your life, you stop being a victim and become the author of your story. You realize that you cannot always choose what happens, but you can always choose who you become through it. Life will test you, but every test carries a gift. The gift of growth, the gift of resilience, the gift of meaning. You are reminded that the human spirit is stronger than anything that happens to it, that strength lives in you right now, waiting to be awakened. Frankl's journey shows that suffering reveals character, and that in your response lies your destiny. The person who can endure suffering with grace becomes unbreakable. He saw that the search for meaning is the search for hope, and the search for hope is the search for life itself. Hope is what keeps the soul alive when everything else is gone. Meaning and hope walk hand in hand. When one dies, the other fades. But when one grows, the other shines brighter. You begin to see that happiness is not the goal, but the result of living with meaning. When you live with purpose, joy follows quietly behind. You realize that even in your darkest hour, you can still choose light. Even in your pain, you can still choose to love. Even in your loss, you can still choose to create. The essence of the book is this: life is not about avoiding pain, but about transforming it into purpose. And when you live this truth, you stop fearing the unknown, because you understand that meaning can exist anywhere, even in the storm. You start to feel a deep peace, because you finally understand that you are not here to escape life. You are here to embrace it fully. Life is asking you a question right now, and your answer is how you live today. Live with purpose, live with love, live with courage, because that is how meaning is born. As you continue listening, imagine the quiet moments after everything has fallen apart, the silence that follows loss, the stillness where you begin to ask yourself, why am I here? What is this all for? That question is the beginning of awakening. It is the seed of meaning. Viktor Frankl teaches that life is not about being comfortable, but about being conscious, about waking up to the truth that every moment has potential, every struggle holds wisdom, every choice shapes your destiny. He once said that when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. That line becomes a doorway. It reminds you that growth is not about controlling life, but about evolving with it. When something painful happens, your first instinct may be to resist, to fight it, to wish it away. But resistance only deepens. Pain acceptance transforms it. Frankl discovered that acceptance is not surrender, it is power. Because once you accept what you cannot change, you free your energy to focus on what you can control: your attitude, your meaning, your next step. He learned this lesson in the cold mornings of the camp, when men marched barefoot in the snow, when food was a memory and hope was a whisper. Even then he found that the mind could rise above the body. He could not choose freedom, but he could choose meaning, and that choice gave him strength. Meaning is what turns survival into purpose. It is what transforms existence into life. It is the difference between giving up and going on. As you reflect on this, you realize that your own struggles may be your training ground. The challenges you face are shaping you into someone capable of deeper compassion, stronger patience, greater purpose. Frankl saw that the greatest danger was not pain, but hopelessness. A person who sees no meaning loses the will to fight. But the one who still has a reason, even a small one, can endure anything. That reason could be love, a dream, a responsibility, a promise, a vision. It doesn't have to be grand, it just has to be real. Meaning is not found in fantasy, but in presence, in the simple act of saying yes to life despite everything. He wrote that the salvation of man is through love, and in love, love gives you a reason to suffer without breaking. Love is the place where meaning is born. When you love deeply, you transcend your own pain, because love connects you to something infinite. Even when the person you love is gone, the love remains alive within you. It becomes the light that guides you through darkness. Love turns suffering into devotion, and loss into memory, and memory into strength. Frankl's story shows that even in despair, there is dignity when you face it with love. Even in pain, there is beauty when you choose to see purpose. Begin to feel that meaning is not an idea, it is an experience. It lives in the way you speak, the way you act, the way you think. Meaning is living with intention, being awake to the present moment, knowing that your life matters not because it is perfect, but because it is yours. You understand that freedom is not the absence of constraint, it is the presence of purpose. Even a prisoner can be free inside if he chooses his attitude. That is the power you hold no matter what happens outside of you. No one can take away your inner choice. That is why Frankl said everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. This idea changes how you see everything. You begin to realize that no situation is meaningless as long as you can give it meaning. If you fail, it can teach you perseverance. If you lose, it can teach you gratitude. If you suffer, it can teach you strength. Pain becomes your teacher if you listen. It speaks the language of growth. It whispers lessons that comfort never could. Meaning is the difference between a wound and wisdom, between chaos and clarity, between despair and direction. Frankl teaches that to find meaning, you must look beyond yourself. The more you give, the more you grow. When you live only for yourself, life feels small. But when you live for something greater, it becomes vast. He reminds you that happiness cannot be pursued, it must ensue. It appears when you live with meaning, not when you chase pleasure. The pursuit of pleasure without purpose leads to emptiness. The pursuit of meaning leads to fulfillment. When you do something that matters, the heart feels alive. You realize that success without purpose feels hollow, but even failure with purpose feels sacred. Meaning gives value to everything it touches. It turns routine into ritual, effort into devotion, time into eternity. You begin to look at your life differently. Your struggles are not interruptions, they are invitations. Your failures are not endings, they are beginnings. Every difficulty hides a message waiting to be discovered. This is what Viktor Frankl discovered in the darkest of places, that life is never meaningless. Meaning can survive where everything else dies. He also learned that humor can be a shield, that when you laugh even for a moment, you prove that your spirit cannot be crushed. Humor was rebellion in disguise. A smile in the face of despair was an act of freedom. You learn that even in pain, you can still create beauty. You can still be kind, still be brave, still be human. Frankl observed that people who helped others, even in suffering, experienced a deeper sense of purpose. When you lift another, you lift yourself. That is why compassion is power, because in giving you discover meaning. In kindness, you find freedom. In empathy, you find your purpose. Every act of service is a declaration that life still matters, that even in the smallest gesture, the soul shines. You begin to see that the human heart is resilient beyond measure, that within you is an invincible will. It may bend, but it will not break. Meaning is the anchor that keeps you steady in the storms of life. Without it, you drift; with it, you endure. Quase's philosophy invites you to take responsibility for your own meaning. It is your task, your art, your creation. You decide what your life means by how you live it. Quase quo, responsibility gives life weight. Without it, everything feels empty. But with it, even pain feels purposeful. To live meaningfully is to live with awareness of your impact on others and on the world. Every word, every action, every thought ripples into eternity. When you wake up each day and ask, what does life expect of me, you begin to live intentionally. You stop waiting for meaning to appear and start creating it through your presence. Frankl believed that each person has a unique mission, something only they can bring to the world. Your mission may not be grand. It might simply be to love fully, to create beauty, to help someone heal. Meaning is not measured by size, but by sincerity. What matters is not how much you do, but how deeply you live. You start to see that even the smallest act done with love carries infinite worth. Washing dishes can be meditation. Listening to someone can be healing. Showing up every day can be courage. Life becomes meaningful when you approach it with reverence. When you see every moment as a chance to live your values. You learn that purpose is not found in someday, but in today, in this breath, this step, this decision. You no longer wait for perfect conditions, because meaning exists even in imperfection. It is not found in the absence of problems, but in how you face them. Frankl's story becomes your reminder that no life is too broken to have meaning. No person is too lost to find purpose. No pain is too great to teach love. When you begin to live by this truth, your world changes. You start to rise above what once held you down. You start to see beauty where there was sorrow, hope where there was fear. You start to become free, not because life gets easier, but because your spirit grows stronger. And that is the ultimate freedom, the freedom to rise within the storm, to find peace in the chaos, to live meaningfully, even when life hurts. That freedom is yours, always has been, always will be. The days in the camp passed slowly and painfully. Time lost its shape. Tomorrow became a fragile idea. Yet Viktor Frankl held on to one belief, that life never stops having meaning. Even in the smallest acts there was purpose. Even in the moments of silence there was choice. He watched men fall to the ground in despair, but he also saw others kneel not in surrender, but in prayer. He saw that two men could live the same pain, yet one would be destroyed, and the other transformed. The difference was not in the suffering, but in the meaning. That became his message to the world. You cannot avoid pain, but you can choose your reason. You cannot control life, but you can always control the story you tell about it. He imagined standing on a stage one day, teaching others what he had learned. He imagined rebuilding his life. That vision kept him alive. Meaning became his survival. When he was finally freed, he did not seek revenge or pity. He sought understanding. He wanted to teach humanity that purpose is the cure for despair, that the will to meaning is what keeps us alive. He wrote that life is never made unbearable by circumstances, only by lack of meaning. And when you remember that, you realize how much power you already hold. Your meaning may not be clear today, but it exists waiting for you to uncover it. It hides in your passions, in your relationships, in your quiet moments of truth. You find meaning when you look beyond yourself, when you give, when you love, when you serve. You find meaning when you turn pain into wisdom and failure into growth. Frankl reminds you that meaning is not luxury, it is necessity. The human soul cannot live without purpose. You can lose everything and still live if you have a reason to rise. Meaning is what turns tragedy into triumph, what turns suffering into soul. It transforms darkness into depth. Every person has a story, and every story carries a message. Your story may be hard, but it is sacred. The scars you carry are not signs of weakness. They are proof that you lived and chose to keep going. Meaning does not erase pain. It redeems it. It gives your struggle context. It says, this was not for nothing. This shaped me. This awakened me. This gave me strength. When you find meaning, you stop asking why me and start asking what now. You stop being the victim and become the author. You stop waiting for life to get better and start living better within life. Frankl believed that man's greatest freedom is his ability to find meaning under any condition. That is what separates survival from surrender. That is what gives dignity to existence. You are not defined by what happens to you. You are defined by how you choose to respond. That is the power of meaning. So the question becomes, what will you choose when you face pain? Will you let it break you or build you? When you face loss, will you let it harden you or open you? When you face uncertainty, will you let it stop you or strengthen you? Meaning is born in those decisions. Every moment is a chance to choose purpose over despair, love over fear, faith over hopelessness. You realize that your greatest challenge may be your greatest teacher, that your greatest heartbreak may lead to your deepest wisdom, that your greatest struggle may awaken your true self. Frankl's life teaches that meaning is not found in comfort, it is found in courage. It is discovered not in what you have, but in what you give, not in what you avoid, but in what you embrace. He survived not because he was the strongest, but because he had a reason to live and a will to serve that reason. That reason can save anyone, because when you live for meaning, you live beyond pain. When you live for meaning, you rise above fear, because you understand that life is not measured by years, but by purpose, not by what you own, but by what you contribute. Each of us has a purpose hidden beneath the noise. To find it, you must listen to your heart. It speaks softly through what excites you, through what hurts you, through what moves you deeply. That is your soul pointing you toward meaning. Meaning is not about becoming perfect, it is about becoming whole, about learning to see value in the dark as much as in the light. When you start to live with meaning, you begin to feel peace in uncertainty. You stop needing to control everything because you trust that even the painful parts have purpose. You understand that growth often feels like loss, that transformation often feels like breaking, that change often feels like ending, but each is a step toward awakening. Frankl showed the world that even after everything you can rebuild, that even when you have nothing left but your mind and your spirit, you can choose to live with grace. And that is what makes you truly free. Freedom is not doing whatever you want, freedom is choosing who you want to be. You realize that every day is an opportunity to make meaning through kindness, through courage, through creativity, through love. Every morning you wake is another chance to say yes to life even when it hurts, even when it's uncertain, even when it's hard. Because the act of saying yes is an act of creation. It is how you keep your soul alive. You are the artist of your meaning, the sculptor of your spirit, the author of your story. What you create with your life is your masterpiece. Do not wait for the perfect moment to begin. Begin where you are. Meaning grows in the soil of imperfection. You don't need to know the entire path. You only need to take the next meaningful step. Every small act of purpose builds a life that matters. Frankl's message echoes across time, reminding you that you are never truly lost. You may wander, you may fall, but meaning will always call you home. And if you listen closely, you will hear it whisper through every challenge, every heartbreak, every victory. It says, keep going, you are growing. Keep believing, you are becoming. Keep loving, you are living. Meaning is the light that never goes out. It shines through suffering, through loss, through change. It shines through you. And one day, you will look back at your life and see that every pain had a purpose, every detour had direction, every scar told a story of strength. That is what Viktor Frankl wanted us to understand. That meaning is the heartbeat of existence, that life is asking you every day. Will you choose purpose? Will you choose love? Will you choose courage? And when you say yes, you become unstoppable. Because the one who has found meaning cannot be broken. They may fall, but they rise again. They may hurt, but they heal with wisdom. They may suffer, but they shine with grace. Meaning is the quiet victory of the human soul. It is how we transcend suffering, how we make beauty out of pain, how we turn life into something sacred. And now, as this story comes to an end, remember this: you are not here by accident. Your life is not random. You were born with a reason. You are here to love, to learn, to create, to give. Your story matters. Your voice matters. Your meaning matters. So live each day not as a race, but as a message of courage, a message of compassion, a message of purpose. Even when the world feels heavy, you can choose light. Even when you feel small, you can make meaning. Because meaning does not depend on what you have, but on what you give. And when you live that way, you never truly lose, because you have already found what matters most. The purpose of life is not to escape suffering, it is to find meaning within it, and to share that meaning with others. So go now, and live with meaning, live with love, live with courage. And if this story touched your heart, remember to share it with someone who may need its light. Thank you for listening to this storytelling summary of Man's Search for Meaning. Subscribe for more life-changing stories that remind you of your strength, your freedom, and your purpose. Your life has meaning, your soul has purpose, and your story is not over yet.